So I went and saw Wonder Woman 1984 the other night, last night in particular, and I was really excited for this one, guys. Like, the other day I put a poll on my Instagram asking my followers to vote on whether or not they wanted a spoiler review of this. I wouldn't have minded either way. So I watched it, and oh my gosh.
What the fuck?
So like the video I did on Mulan, if you have not seen it, it is over here. I am going to be giving a spoiler review of this film. A film that, like Mulan, also I wanted to like a lot. I went into this desperate for it to be the best thing of the year, desperate for it to make this year worth it. So happy was I when I was informed that I would be getting to see this film on Christmas Day. So I have thoughts, and these thoughts are going to be spoilerific. So if you have not seen the film, I suggest you don't watch this video because I'm going to be talking about everything, I think, that happens. Let me just start by saying that the first trailer was freaking awesome. The posters were good, the movie looked really good. Wonder Woman 2017 is my favorite superhero movie of all time. My second favorite superhero movie of all time, and I know this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, is Batman vs. Superman. Another film that had Wonder Woman in it. I love her. I love Gal Gadot. The trailers of this were so good. The shots in the trailer looked beautiful. The action looked epic. The acting seemed promising. And Patty Jenkins, in every single interview, was hyping it up as the biggest movie she's ever worked on. So was Gal Gadot, saying that this was the biggest movie they've ever worked on. And when this film ended, my reaction was just genuine confusion. For a plot so simplistic, I couldn't explain to anyone what the rules of this fucking stone were. Okay, so I'm gonna just start with the positives because, or one positive for that matter, you know, in the spirit of not being a total jerk. Kristen Wiig. Kristen Wiig was the only thing this movie had going for it. Kristen Wiig is the only good thing in this movie. She is super beautiful, super talented, super badass. We love that, not gonna lie. The cheetah fight scene in the end, although it only lasted for about 4.5 minutes, was electrifying and intense and everything I wanted it to be. Like when Cheetah was just like coming in and ripping Diana's armor off with her claws and just like scratching the floor and like jumping at her and like kicking her, I was living. I was living. This was the best part of the movie. Finally, getting to see her in action was everything. So that's about it. That's what I loved about the movie. The rest of the film, however, was painful. Fuck, where do I even start? Wonder Woman 1984, more like Wonder Woman 1980 bore. Yeah. The movie opens up in Themyscira. We have this giant scene, and this scene gave me so much hope that this would be like the first film because it opens up with the Amazons, and there's a contest, and there's horses, and these long, big, sweeping aerial shots of the island. I was just like, wow. Little did I know that this was the only fucking resemblance that this would have of the first film. So this whole scene ends with young Diana cheating in the contest, and Robin Wright comes in and says, cheating is bad, therefore you don't win, because cheaters don't win, literally wagging her finger at her, and that's all we get of Robin Wright in this film, sadly. And look, I agree, but this whole notion that cheating gets you nowhere is just so tired and facile. It is a platitude that has been said time and time again. It's so lame, it's so like obvious. I mean, come on, the first movie, the villain was war. It was about war. It was about a secret history of this woman that we don't know about. But this one is about, like, a fucking plot you'd see in Spy Kids. The first Wonder Woman framed war as the bad guy. That's deep, for the most part. Because then, you know, the finale happened. So after this amazing Themyscira scene, we end up in the 80s. The age of glam and color and the apparent lack of music from Michael Jackson, Madonna, Annie Lennox, David Bowie, Depeche Mode, The Human League, and The Cure. Not a single song from any one of these people or any 80s band or singer was in this film, for that matter. An 80s movie with no 80s music. Bitch, Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron was able to put in all these amazing 80s songs, and it was on a significantly lower budget. This movie was made for like $200 million, and what, like you couldn't even, not a single 80s song. Look, I can forgive the fact that this is set in the 80s and we don't see a single person do a line of coke, but at least have someone walk across an aisle of radios and have someone playing freaking Madonna, Michael Jackson, somebody, but no one? What the fuck? So the first action scene is we see Diana stopping this heist in this mall. And oh my god, it's so bad. Like, this scene is literally like watching a Super Bowl commercial, but without the product placement. I was waiting for freaking Gal Gadot to like whip out a freaking Pepsi and be like, cha-ching, and wink her eye at the camera, but like, no, we couldn't even get that. And then after this, we do finally meet Kristen Wiig, the only good thing in this movie, the savior of this film. We need to talk about this casting. This was the strangest casting ever. It was very inspired. I don't know what it was inspired by, though. They got this to play this. Okay, so when I said I liked Kristen Wiig, I mean I liked the actor. I did not mean I liked the character, because the character has a lot of problems to her. She starts off as this geeky little klutz, you know, with her head hidden in between the valley of her shoulders. And this is when I got worried, because at this point all I could see was SNL. All I could see was Saturday Night Live with Gal Gadot as the guest star, hosting the show. Literally waiting for a fucking laughs track to start playing. The museum they worked in looked like an oversaturated soundstage, and it was so brightly lit, it just looked like a set that you would see on SNL, and I just couldn't unsee it. I couldn't unsee it. The awkward, gangly woman suddenly getting superpowers and becoming hot. I mean, this is literally Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy in Batman and Robin. Like, this is literally that same character, but with no red hair. She gets introduced to Pedro Pascal's character, and we learn that the film's narrative revolves around this fucking wishing stone. Lame! So lame! So lame, because basically anything can happen without any substantial explanation, because they can always fall back on the, oh, the magic of the wishing stone willed this plot contrivance into existence. Shut the fuck up. That is the makers of this movie using the friggin' MacGuffin as an excuse to blame the continuity errors on, of which there are many. So we learned that the wishing stone can grant any wish, and honestly, the mechanics behind this fucking thing are so convoluted. It's a stone that grants wishes, but somehow they were able to put in some rules that made this thing even more like, what the fuck? Alright, so I just need to talk about, I need to talk about what these people wished for. So we're gonna start with Barbara, we're gonna start with Dr. Barbara Minerva, and she wished to be like Diana based on her first impression of her on the same day they meet. Could Diana be a fucking serial killer? I don't know. We're just gonna go with it. This villain is called Cheetah, and she becomes a cheetah and starts wearing cheetah print because of the one time she saw Diana wearing high-heeled shoes with cheetah print. She forms an entire villain arc around the first sight of a pretty woman's shoes. And you know what the sad part is? This was the most believable storyline in this film. I'm not kidding. So then we have Maxwell Lord, and he wishes to be the stone. He is this con man who has something to do with oil and shit like that. It was like so fucking convoluted. And I mean, he could have just wished to be rich and famous beyond his wildest dreams, and then hide the stone so nobody else can use it, or nobody else can figure out that he used it. But no! So as for Diana, she wishes for Steve Trevor to come back to her. So in essence, I can't really blame Diana. Like, this is very believable, but we seriously need to talk about the way they carried this out in this film. Because this is when things start to get real up in here. So Steve Trevor doesn't actually come back from the grave. Yeah, this is one shitty fucking wishing stone. I want my money back. So no, instead his consciousness takes over the body of a living man. They literally put him in the body of a man who is living and breathing and living in his own house. And it's literally just his consciousness, because Diana sees him as Steve, but he, when he looks into his reflection, sees him as the same guy, and to everybody else, this isn't Steve Trevor, this is just some Joe Schmo on the road, you know? So they get back together, and then in the next scene, Diana and Steve wake up together, nude in the same bed. These two had intercourse. They fucked. Period. Like, you expect me to believe that she had blue balls for 70 years and they didn't get at it the first night they got back together? Come on. So basically, Diana and Steve used this man's body for a sex act that he was unable to consent to. Now, I don't know about you guys, but here in these parts, we call that shit seriously. Seriously. I never thought I would live to see the day where a man gets in a PG-13 superhero movie. Is this where we have come as a culture? If the roles were reversed and a woman's body was possessed and Superman came in and fucked her, y'all would be in flames. So Diana and Steve go on a mission, and we don't know anything about the guy whose body he possessed. Like, is he absent from work? Is he being absent from work? Does he have a wife? Does he have a family? Does he have somewhere to be? Are people concerned about where this guy's at? Because at some point they end up in Egypt, and surely someone would take notice of this, but no, this is a fictional movie with a wishing stone, so we don't have to fucking explain anything. Also, the diversity in this film is just sad. I mean, kudos to them for casting Pedro Pascal from Chile, according to my Google search, in a leading role, particularly as the villain. But the other people of color are either decorative set dressing, or homeless, or a plot device. Okay, so now we need to talk about the action. And by action, I mean this fucking movie had less fight scenes than Suicide Squad. Like, I'm not even gonna talk about the few action scenes that were in this movie because, to sum it up, they were all worse than the first Wonder Woman film. None of them were in any way, shape, or form as good or even tied with a single action scene in the first Wonder Woman film. Not one. We need to talk about the scene when she realizes that in order to get her powers back, she needs to give up Steve Trevor. Diana has to do this emotionally heavy sacrifice so she gets her powers back and she can save the world. And it's built up to be this very emotional scene. Like, it would demand very good acting chops to pull this off. But Gal Gadot, yikes! Yikes! Oh my gosh! She's beautiful, okay? And watching this woman kick ass is awesome. Watching her act, however, is painful. Their final goodbye was like watching an overacted freaking Hallmark Christmas movie. It was so bad. Alright, we need to get into this bullshit. So, she learns how to fly. Yeah, she learns how to fly. I repeat that. She learns how to fly. Don't you just love the scene in Justice League where she fucking flies up and picks up Steppenwolf while the other Justice League people get that mother box? Except that shit never happened! In addition to knowing how to fly, she can also apparently turn things invisible. Look, I know in the comics that, you know, she has this invisible jet, but in this film, she takes a jet with Steve and she literally turns the jet invisible with a force field or something. Like, the jet wasn't invisible to begin with. And she manages to keep this jet invisible on a flight from America all the way to Egypt. That entire flight, the jet was invisible. So she clearly has a mastery of this power if she was able to keep it up that long. But does it occur to her to use this skill in any of the fight scenes? No. Does it occur to her to turn herself invisible in the middle of a fight to outwit her enemy and have the upper hand? No. Does she engage in a fight scene when she has her full powers back? Yes. Does she fly and become invisible? Neither. No.
What the fuck?
What the fuck? That's lazy writing. If that's not bullshit, I don't know what bullshit is. Bullshit. There's no continuity in this fucking movie. And then I'm not even gonna get to the ending where Maxwell Lord tries to grant people's wishes because of the particles in the radio airwaves, and how somehow, despite there being no internet in the 80s or no computers with internet in the 80s, his feed was able to show up on the computers of some people at the end. I'm like, what? And all that being said, and I haven't even gotten to the film's pacing.
2.5 hours.
It's so fucking boring. Like, I honestly feel like this movie would have done so much better had they just taken out the whole Maxwell Lord subplot and done this movie around Cheetah's actual story from the comics, you know, Barbara Minerva's story in the comics. Because, like, the way she turns into Cheetah here is very different from how she turns into Cheetah in the comics. And the story in the comics is vastly more compelling than anything we see over here, actually. So Diana comes out in this golden bird costume in the end, where she looks like this Egyptian goddess. But before that, she said goodbye to Steve, and she flies up into the sky, and then she flies into a storm cloud and starts whipping the thunder and flying because of the thunder. And at this point, when she's in the storm cloud, she is like still in her normal costume. But when she shows up to where she needs to be in the end, she's in this costume. Like, did she have this dramatic moment just so she could go back home and change? What the Somehow this dramatic scene was en route to her apartment.
Seriously, what the fuck are you doing?
What? Also, if they were gonna set parts of this movie in Egypt, why couldn't she have fought Cheetah in Egypt? I mean, the costume looked like something Egyptian. Cheetahs are animals you find in Africa. Why didn't they just... Instead, we get racial stereotypes and a plot about oil. Ugh. The first Wonder Woman movie is set in World War I, and then we go straight to the Cold War. Like, what? I mean, did Wonder Woman just sit out in World War II? Did she sit out when Vietnam was happening? And speaking of the Cold War is only hinted at for about 5 seconds at the end. It's set in 1984, and there are no references to Orwell. That would have been nice. So here's some trivia about me. Last year, I pissed off a whole lot of people on Twitter because I was bashing Captain Marvel because I fucking hate that movie too. And trust me, my opinion on Captain Marvel has not changed. So with that being said, my review of Wonder Woman 1984 is I would rather watch Captain Marvel 3 times in a row instead of watching this movie. Anywho, that's all for now. Be sure to downvote, unsubscribe, tell me how stupid I am in the comments for liking Batman vs. Superman. Shit on me, I like it. Especially if you're a Marvel shill. That means your shit is potent. Anyway, bye!